I am your host, Julie Palumbo, and today we have back with us Dr. Nicole Rivera of the Integrative Wellness Group, and we are going to talk about what everyone wants to talk about, is how to slow down the aging process and see what we could do to constantly make ourselves younger, both inside and out. So, Dr. Nicole, welcome again. We love having you here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
So let's kick things off with what happens in the aging process. What are some things, and I'm just going to take a personal experience of myself. I'm 32 years old, and I can tell you right now that there are things that affect me more now at 32 than they did at 22. One thing being, I work out and I have a harder time recovering, or as I'm sure our viewers feel, I have a few drinks and the next day I am not bright-eyed and bushy-tailed right out of the gate like I used to be. So what's going on? Just, I feel like I'm young, but I do notice a difference between, my 20s and now my 30s.
You notice a change in your resiliency.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So it's interesting because over time, there was obviously, I feel like all of us can relate to what you just said to some capacity of things start to change, and they can change in your 30s. Some people say it changes in 40s and even 50s. So everyone's on a little bit of a different timeline. But one of the things that I've realized over time is that when we feel that our bodies have shifted and our bodies are not as resilient as they used to be, a lot of it actually comes down to the fact that our body's ability to filter isn't as good as it used to be. And let's use the example of the having a few drinks. So you're in college and you're able to have those few drinks and probably stay up really late and then get up the next day to either go to class or go to work or whatever the case may be and feel okay. Maybe not great, but feel okay. And one of the things that's really important about that specifically is that actually is reflective of your liver health. And I know that when we think of the liver, a lot of people automatically think alcohol, but overall your liver is the major filtration system for any types of medications that you take. So that includes just like your Tylenol, your Excedrin, your Pamprin. Your liver is going to filter out any other types of toxins you're exposed to. Maybe that's the toxins coming from plastics that you're using with your water bottles, or like plastic Tupperware. That could be different types of pesticides, herbicides, etc. Some of you listening might be new to this world of toxicity, but unfortunately there are toxins all around us. There are a lot of things that we even apply to our skin every day that are in the form of lotions and cosmetics. So our liver is equipped to deal with those things. That is its job. So it's not that we have to live in fear of toxins. It's just our body is equipped to deal with it. But think about it. It's almost like a filtration system that starts to get full. So if you think of a vacuum, you have this brand new vacuum, maybe a Dyson, really fancy, and you use it every single day for a month, but you never dump the filter. You just keep using it. It's going to get to the point that the filter gets increasingly more full. And then when it's at max capacity, you can't keep using the vacuum until you dump the filter. And when we go through a lifetime of different exposures, the filtration systems get more and more full, and then we start to feel less and less resilient. And this is something that's going to happen with our liver, which is going to potentially affect like maybe how we metabolize medications or how we metabolize alcohol. But then the interesting thing is, a lot of us, when we're talking about aging, we always want our skin to look beautiful. We always want to make sure we're maintaining that system. And your skin actually works hand in hand with your lymph nodes, because like when you get sick and all of this hurts in here, that's because your lymph nodes are doing their job. They're actually trying to gobble up whatever bad stuff you've been exposed to, bacteria, virus, etc. So it shows you though, the lymph nodes are very close to the skin. So if you have been exposed to different types of, viruses, or you had a lot of sinus infections, you've had a lot of sore throats, whatever the case may be, and even toxins as well, but you get exposed to these different things and your lymph nodes are trying to filter. And then they also get to a point that they get increasingly more congested. So then what you're going to start to see is aging spots. Or you're noticing that the elastin in your skin is not as good, aka wrinkles. And you also can, even when your lymph is really at max capacity, you can actually even start to have changes of moles and even precancerous changes.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is really interesting for people that have been diagnosed with basal cell carcinomas or different types of skin cancers. And they're like, but I'm very avid about using my sunblock, or I don't go in the sun. And that's because it's not super cut and dry to say that skin cancers or skin changes are just related to the sun. They can very much be related to what is in our lymph nodes.
So what can we do to make our lymph system stronger or better or more efficient as we age?
So one of the best things that you can do that will actually open up all of your filtration systems, so that could be your lymph nodes, that could be your liver, your kidneys are also another filtration system, but definitely cleaning up your diet, which we'll elaborate further on, is very, very important to make sure these systems are working. But more particularly when you're dealing with the lymph, movement and sweating are so important. And if you are a person that says, I don't sweat, I glisten, which I know is nice, that means your lymph nodes are congested already.
Wow.
Yes. And even more fascinating is, what I just described, you would think like, okay, that makes sense that maybe in my 30s, 40s, 50s, I start to notice I'm not as resilient. But what's kind of crazy is that I recently worked with an infant who was 3 months old that was having head to toe rash. It literally almost looked like scabies.
Wow.
It wasn't scabies, but it looked like it. And when we tested this baby, we were like, oh my God, this is the lymph. Like, how is this even possible that a newborn would potentially have compromised lymph? And one of those has to do with C-section. Because when you go through the birth canal and you go through that really, really small space, it actually squeezes any of the amniotic fluid or any buildup in the lymph nodes. So just being a C-section can actually compromise your lymph nodes really, really early on. So you might be in your teens or 20s and noticing your body isn't as resilient.
So is there something and I know you mentioned diet, so what can we do? So let's say you're a C-section baby and you are noticing, you're in your 20s and 30s and you're just not retaliating as well as you used to. You're not bouncing back as you used to, and you feel like, things just aren't, your skin isn't what it used to be. What can you do regarding diet or maybe skin brushing, something like what can we do?
So dietary wise, when you're dealing with diet, you're going to have a bigger impact on your kidneys, liver, and gut. So you're going to be able to really address those filtration systems by diet. When it comes to the lymph, dry brushing is amazing. There's actually a video on YouTube that we put up about dry brushing to show you how to do it properly. So that will help to detox your lymph nodes. And then sweating, so different types of cardio activity. And so rebounding to some capacity, that could be jumping on a trampoline. So for those like young women or men that are gymnasts, or they're on those trampolines or those spongy surfaces, like that's actually a great way to get your lymph moving. And then when it comes to sweating, it could be anything from like a sauna to just doing cardio activity. But those are some of the key things for the actual lymph. It's definitely movement and heat. So you don't have to work out necessarily to sweat. A sauna also works. 100%. Because a sauna is going to, and I should be more specific, infrared sauna is best for the lymph because it heats you from the inside out like a fever would. Okay. Yeah, so it's going to burn off whatever is gunked up in the system. Okay, cool. And that will help the liver as well. But there is actually a category of vegetables that are called cruciferous vegetables that are very, very impactful for the liver and also the gallbladder to clean that system up. So some of those include a lot of leafy greens, which I know are not everyone's favorites, but even if you sneak them into soups or smoothies, but everything from your Swiss chard, collard greens, spinach, kale, also your broccoli, cauliflowers, which I know a lot are a lot more friendly to people. But there's also some other vegetables that I feel like a lot of people don't do, but something like kohlrabi, it's actually delicious if you like chop it up and throw it in a salad. So there's a lot of vegetables in that family that you can use to help with your liver detoxification. And then if you want to get a little bit more specific with your gallbladder, by the way, your gallbladder breaks down fats. So if you're the person that can't tolerate like ice cream or fettuccine alfredo, I'm not advocating these foods, but I'm just saying if you can't handle those like creamy sauces, it's usually because your gallbladder's a little stressed.
Okay.
So beets. Beets are an amazing food for that. So people are like, oh, beets. Oh, I don't want to eat those. But if you actually take a fresh beet, by the way, if you're like really opposed to beets, do golden beets because golden beets are not as intense. But regardless, if you do golden or red, slice them like a potato chip and roast them in the oven with salt, pepper, and a little like turmeric powder. I promise you, you will not be disappointed.
That's awesome. I'll have to try that. I normally drink my beet juice, so I'll have to put it in chip form.
Well, if you're trying to, I'm glad you said that, because if you're trying to get the maximum benefit for liver and gallbladder, it's actually you want to eat them, not juice them.
Interesting. Okay.
Fiber.
Okay, so there we go. And that actually ties into our previous episode about juicing and the detox cleanse, which not all the time, juicing isn't all the time the best answer because you need the fiber, and this is the case where you have to actually eat it to get the benefits.
Well, and I think it's just like a blanket statement to say that most of our food is designed, it's from nature because it's equipped to give us what we need to digest it. It's even the same concept with eggs. You know, a lot of people want to go low fat, so they want to take the egg yolk out and they want to just do the egg whites from a calorie standpoint, but it's specifically the white and the yolk is designed to help you to digest it the best. So eating the whole egg is actually beneficial. And obviously if you have an allergy, that's a different story, but eating the egg yolk with the egg white allows you to break it down and digest it properly.
Interesting. So for those of you, I used to always separate my egg whites from my egg yolks because of that reason, thinking I was like lower fat. But you know, nature gives us these gifts that we should just enjoy as is and not try to modify that. And speaking of nature, and I know you and I were talking about this prior to the show, was about the lack in diversity in our diets that we've been experiencing recently that could have an impact on our aging process. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so lack of diversity really comes down to the fact that, at least here in America, we can access anything at any time. You know, it's funny, I go to the store the other day and I was looking around, and I love avocados, and obviously avocados are not grown here in New Jersey, but the fact that I'm getting, I always question when I can get an organic avocado in winter, because I'm like, okay, is it truly organic? Is it worth it for me to spend the money? Because, you know, where did this come from? How long was it sitting on a truck or a plane somewhere? And like, I think this is something that a lot of people need to think about, because unfortunately, when I lived in California, I actually had a couple of trees in my yard. One was a peach tree. There was like a grapevine. There was a bunch of things back there. And what was crazy is I saw these peaches and I grabbed them from the tree and I brought them in the house. It was literally one day and they were rotten.
Wow.
It just opened my eyes. I'm like, well, obviously this is as organic as it comes because I didn't put anything on the tree, any pesticides or, you know, preservatives. So it was very eye-opening to me because I'm like, oh my gosh, like clearly things are not supposed to have a very long shelf life. So even when we are getting organic avocados from Mexico, like there must be something that they're using to preserve it. So I'm not deterring people by any means from eating organic, because organic is 100% going to be better than conventional because of all the chemicals. By the way, they use 246 chemicals on your produce. It's not 1 or 2 anymore.
Wow.
46.
Yikes. Okay.
But
Organic it is. Writing that down.
But it allows you to understand that, you know, maybe taking that extra step to work with a local farm or be part of some type of co-op is really important, because it starts to open your eyes to what is actually in season. Like, we actually still have a farmer's market. I think their last weekend was, the last weekend of the year was last weekend. And when I went, you know, it was a lot of root vegetables. It's potatoes, there was carrots, you know, all different types of sweet potatoes. That's really what they had. There's no more tomatoes. There's no, like, you know, fruit. It's just, and it really makes you think. And also, I actually bought a bunch of celery for soup, and it's so fascinating. I'm looking at the celery, and it's so skinny, and it's so dark green.
Yeah.
And then I'm talking to actually a friend who's a chef, and he's like, yeah, most of the celery you get in the store is actually injected with fluid to keep it hydrated longer so it doesn't dry out.
Wow.
So it just shows you that the food is being manipulated to some capacity so that we could try to keep this diversity throughout the year, but we really need to be more conscious of what is actually in season and to try to work within those parameters so that we're keeping our diets really diverse. I know a lot of us are creatures of habit. It's like, you know, the chicken, the broccoli, and then next week is the chicken and the spinach, and we're constantly eating the same things, but try to get outside of the box, and also try to get outside the box with your proteins. For those of you that are eating meat, back in the day, they used to, you know, it was hunter-gatherer. So when they hunted, people think that, you know, especially hunter-gatherer, they're saying like paleo and all these new diets these days, and they're calling it hunter-gatherer and eating meat every day. So back in the day, you could gather all the time, but when you hunted, you maybe killed one animal a month.
Right.
So you would use all aspects of that animal over the course of a month. So you're not just eating the fillet, you're not just eating the breast, you're not just eating the strip, like you're eating the organs, you're eating you're boiling down the bones to make bone broth, like you're using every aspect. And I think it's important for people to, you know, look at the resources that are available for it. And bone broth is such a thing now, but you know, organ meats, if you use them in certain ways, they can be so beneficial to your body. And I don't know if you know this too, is one of these supplement companies that I'm affiliated with called Standard Process, one of their biggest things that actually made them very well known was their line of supplements called protomorphogens. So pretty much what it is like, if you think about it, like if you have a thyroid condition, like an autoimmune thyroid, and your immune system is attacking your thyroid, they would give you thyroid from a cow that was dehydrated and ground into a supplement, and you would take that and it would stabilize the autoimmune condition.
Interesting.
So it's all they did was took the concept of back in the day, if you were sick with something, they would give you that. So bone broth, that's where all your immune system properties live.
Yep.
So they used to cook down the bones if you were sick, aka chicken soup.
Yep.
They used to boil down the bones and give you the broth because that was going to boost your immune system.
Exactly. And that's still, I mean, bone broth is still such a great component of a healthy diet. And, you know, you brought up a few things that really resonated with me. And one being that, you know, we tend to be creatures of habit and eat the same things over and over. And not only is it good to diversify because of where it's sourced, but also so that our bodies are exposed to different nutrients and vitamins from different places that could help our aging process. And, you know, like you mentioned the beets, and now, you know, that's a root vegetable. So that's today, or now is a really great time of year for that. And I like to tell my clients too that, you know, we tend to, in the northeastern part of the country, dread winter and the darkness. But if you keep traditions to this time of year, like you get really excited for what's in season, you could turn it into a positive. Just like you can't get a peach or a strawberry as good as the Jersey grown in the summer, you know, maybe in the winter you can't get as good of, we have a farmer's market too, and they have the best apples in December, you know, or they have like all the carrots and potatoes and all that is now. So why not just kind of embrace that and make that your winter diet? And then, when the other foods come back into season, enjoy those.
And it's so educational to kids. Like if you're listening and you have children, because, kids are not excited about food anymore because they have no reason to be. It's pasta, chicken fingers, and these foods are addictive. When you're like, my kid won't eat anything, it's because those foods are designed for them to be addicted to them. They have tons of sugar. They have tons of additives to them. So yeah, your kid is going to ask for that. They are going to crave that. Mm-hmm. But when you can take them to a farm and show them like how things are grown and get their hands dirty, like that is such an educational experience that allows them to be like, maybe I will try that. Or maybe, I will not be so scared of the vegetables. And also eating fresh vegetables opposed to things that come in the frozen bag or the can, like that's a game changer. Like when kids come to my house, they eat beets and like them. Yeah. And it's not because I'm forcing them down their throat. They're just like, they're cooked differently. They taste completely different when they come from a fresh source. So it's very interesting when you really like make it a fun experience, essentially.
That's awesome. And I love your ideas too. And I know that, this segment is about aging, but to kind of tie it into even our first session is it starts when you're young. And if you're enjoying these things when you're young, you're going to continue these healthy habits throughout your life so that when you are in your 40s, 50s, 60s, you're already ahead of the game. You're not trying to undo these bad habits that you developed earlier in your life.
Yeah. And I know for you, you work with a lot of people that are really busy, as do I, as my life is very busy. And like one thing that I get really passionate about is when people say, this all sounds good, but I don't have time for that. I'm busy. I have a job. I'm a CEO. I'm an executive. And first of all, if that's the case, then you potentially have the means. Hire somebody to do this for you. Hire a house manager to cook for you. Like you can do that, or you can utilize some type of meal service that will give you these types of foods. Yep. But also secondarily, I am so unbelievably busy. People look at my schedule and they go like, I don't even know how you function. And I still manage to make something for my week. Mm-hmm. And it's not because I'm a fancy cook. I'm not spending hours on a Sunday. Mm-hmm. I used to do that and I just can't do it anymore. But like I keep it so simple. I literally throw a bunch of stuff in a crock pot and eat like a soup all week. And then I'll literally roast some chicken and that, or hard boil a bunch of eggs. Like you don't have to get really crazy and you don't have to cook every day and you don't have to have this be like another thing on your to-do list. Mm-hmm. It's all about balance. It's all about creating priority. And then also if it's just not feasible, hire somebody else to do it. We hire other people to come and do the plumbing and everything else. It's just hire somebody else to help keep you healthy.
Right. And a good point about that too is a lot of grocery stores, you will pay a premium, but they do have pre-cut veggies. You could go get spiralized beets or spiralized sweet potatoes that you just throw in with some vegetables and you have a stir fry. So it is an easier way. I think it's easier than it seems. And I mean, we could do a whole segment just on habit change because that's what it is. You have to get in the habit of doing it. But it is so integral to have these healthy diets year round, obviously not just for us internally, but externally as well. So basically, guys, if you want to look good, you got to eat good. So you put good food in, you get good out. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. So in wrapping up, what is the one thing that we can all do to make sure that we are looking and feeling our best decade through decade through decade?
I think the one most important thing to take away from this entire talk is the fact that you're not doomed. You're not doomed to age. And I think that that's what a lot of us not only believe, but are told. And that's hence why we believe it. So it's not that you're just doomed to age, because obviously we look at some people that age and then they look like they're 30 and they're like, I'm almost 60. And you're like, oh my goodness, that's amazing. So you're like, what are you doing?
Yes.
And then there's obviously other people that are 30 that look like they're 60. Mm-hmm. So there's so many factors that can play that we talked about today. And it's really being conscious of what you're putting into your body. And one thing we didn't dive too deep into is also really just like maintaining your stress levels and really making sure that, you know, you can be conscious of not living a life that is just constantly full of stress because you're not doing what you love, or you're just kind of settling for, you know, the job and everything else. So it's trying to be really conscious of creating balance. This is not about being super gung-ho on any one thing, because I know with working with clients, one thing that I've seen is that they're completely gung-ho about taking all of the supplements and being really, really strict with their diet, but then they show up to a job that they hate, like deeply hate on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So it's not about being happy every day, because that's not real life. It's balance, but it's really just trying to understand that what you eat matters. Going and having a little dessert and glass of wine is fine, but it's also about keeping your physical body in a place that it's also having the ability to thrive. And that's when we talked about really just making sure that you sweat and you just move to some capacity, and also really being conscious of, if you have stressors in your life, which we all will, what are you going to do to de-stress? Like, are you going to give yourself just a day? Are you going to go to a yoga class? Like, what is that going to be? And knowing that you deserve that.
That's awesome. And I thank you again for being here on the show. As I said, I always take away so much valuable information. So thank you again for being here, Dr. Nicole. And to all of you, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Disrupt Health. I'm Julie Palumbo, and I will see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.